I said before that I was going to do a video about the subtle signs of congestive heart failure because Sylvie has congestive heart failure, but it really wasn't very obvious at first. I actually spent months and months trying to figure out what was going on with Sylvie. I think the biggest sign was actually something that looks like coughing when she's eating or drinking, and I'll show you here what that looks like. This happens and was happening regularly, so almost every time she drinks or eats. And at the time, I was told it was just water going down the wrong way. Before we found Sylvie's forever vet, I asked the vet what it was, and they said, "Oh, it's just a little quirk of Sylvie." But looking back, it probably wasn't that. It was probably her trying to clear fluid from her airway continually. So if your hamster's doing that regularly, it's definitely something I would get checked further. Another sign for Sylvie was a gradual drop in activity, but that wasn't straightforward either. So at first I thought it was something else. So she's always had this issue with her arm where she kind of pulls it back. And we spent such a long time trying to figure out what that was. Then we thought maybe it was flower mites. Maybe her having flower mites was making her uncomfortable, and I spent months getting rid of them. But every time I treated something or the vet treated something, her activity just didn't fully come back, and it just was a slow decline over time. So don't always assume that reduced activity has just one obvious cause, especially if it gets worse over time. The hardest part of diagnosing congestive heart failure in Sylvie is that she always seemed well in herself. So she was eating, drinking, grooming, her ears were pointy. She just wasn't doing very much. So that made it really easy to think she was okay when actually something much deeper was going on. So as I mentioned earlier, she also had this symptom where she'd just curl her arm back, almost like she was, like had a bad shoulder or something, and she was pulling her arm back and it was causing her to kind of topple over a little bit. And we never really got to the bottom of that. Like, that's why I kept going back to the vet with Sylvie, because we were treating that with Metacam and her activity was reducing and this arm thing was still going on. So we were back and forth the vets trying to figure out what that was. It might be unrelated to congestive heart failure, but I do wonder if it's actually linked to perhaps she's getting some discomfort in her chest. So if there's fluid around her heart, she may be feeling pressure in her chest that she's trying to relieve with this arm movement. I wouldn't want to say that's a definite sign, it's just something that feels like it could be part of the problem that we're dealing with at this point. Sylvie was only diagnosed when her breathing got quite bad, so the day that I took her to the vet to just get a lump checked out, she was actually struggling to breathe, visibly struggling, and she wasn't really moving around at all. And if the vet hadn't seen her at that exact point, I'm really not sure it would have been picked up when it was, until something like that happened again in future. So the reason I'm sharing this is not to scare anyone, it's just to say if something feels off, even if it seems small or gets dismissed, it's okay to push a bit further or get a second opinion. A lot of these signs are actually really, really subtle, and it's only when you see them together that you think, yeah, this does kind of paint a picture of congestive heart failure. But taken separately, these also look like other things as well, and that's what makes it so hard. Just remember, you know your hamster best, and small changes over time really matter. I think for me, the biggest thing I wish I had done is to get a second opinion on that coffin, because when I showed the vet after her diagnosis, he was like, yeah, she's clearing her airways. But I was told differently by another vet, and so it wasn't something that I really brought up again, because I just thought that the other vet knew what they were talking about. So it can be worth sometimes repeating symptoms or talking about things, small things. If there's a lot of different small things going on, it might just be worth repeating symptoms, even if it's something you've mentioned before or that someone's ruled out previously.